For decades, many fans believed they knew everything about Nancy Kulp, best remembered for playing the intelligent and proper Miss Jane Hathaway on the classic sitcom The Beverly Hillbillies, but as the years passed, it became clear that her real life was far more complex than the character she portrayed on screen, leading some to describe her story as a double life, though in truth it was less about secrecy and more about living in a time when personal truths were often kept private. During the height of her fame in the 1960s, Kulp became a household name as the loyal secretary to banker Milburn Drysdale, bringing humor and intelligence to one of television's most popular shows. Yet away from the bright lights of Hollywood, she was navigating a personal identity that could not be openly discussed in that era, as later in life she acknowledged being a lesbian at a time when such openness could have ended a career in mainstream entertainment. While she never made dramatic public announcements during her television years, she eventually confirmed her sexuality in the late 1980s during an interview, a quiet but meaningful moment that revealed how much she had carried privately while working in a conservative industry that expected performers to fit narrow public images. Beyond her personal identity, Kulp also lived another unexpected chapter that many viewers never knew about, stepping away from acting to pursue politics and public service, even running for Congress in Pennsylvania in 1984 as a Democrat, an unusual move for a former sitcom star and one that surprised fans who only knew her from comedy television. Although she did not win the election, her campaign showed that she had interests and ambitions far beyond Hollywood, reflecting her strong academic background, as she had studied journalism and English before her acting career began and had even worked in public relations. Her life also included service during World War II as part of the U.S. Naval Reserve, another lesser-known chapter that highlighted her intelligence and dedication long before she became famous on television. The idea that she lived a double life comes partly from the contrast between her on-screen persona, proper, professional, and somewhat conservative, and the fuller reality of a woman who quietly broke barriers simply by existing as herself in a restrictive era. In the 1960s and 1970s, being openly gay in Hollywood often meant losing roles, facing discrimination, and risking public backlash, so many performers chose privacy over publicity, and Kulp was no exception, maintaining dignity and discretion while focusing on her work. When her former co-star Buddy Ebsen made dismissive comments about her political ambitions, it reportedly hurt her deeply, showing that even after years of working together, misunderstandings remained. Yet she handled criticism with grace rather than bitterness. In her later years, she returned to teaching and theater, continuing to share her knowledge and passion for performance while living more openly about who she was. And though she passed away in 1991 after battling cancer, her story has since been revisited with greater appreciation and understanding. Today, looking back, her life feels powerful not because it was scandalous, but because it quietly challenged expectations in multiple ways, as a woman in comedy, as a veteran, as a political candidate, and as someone who belonged to a community rarely acknowledged publicly during her prime. The emotion people feel now comes from realizing how much she carried privately during a time when society offered little acceptance, and how different her experience might have been if she had lived in a more open era. Rather than a shocking revelation, her story is one of resilience, intelligence, and quiet courage, reminding audiences that behind familiar television characters are real human beings with layered lives, private struggles, and personal truths that history only fully understands years later.